We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I know they're gonna kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me!
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first!
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hi, you found the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we're hopping in the saddle for another AIP Western with Flesh in the Spur from 1956.
Flesh in the Spur was directed by Edward L. Cahn, written by Charles B. Griffith and Mark Hanna, with additional dialogue by Lou Rusoff and Edward L. Cahn, and based on that original story by Charles B. Griffith and Mark Hanna. It was produced by Alex Gordon, Touch Connors, and Charles John Lyons Jr. for High Productions.
Flesh and the Spur stars John Agar as Luke Random and Matthew Random, Marla English as Wild Willow, Touch Connors as Stacey Doggett, Raymond Hatton as Windy Wagon Wheels, Maria Monay as Lola, Joyce Meadows as Rena, Kenne Duncan as Kale Tanner, Frank Lackteen as Indian Chief, Mel Gaines as Blackie, Michael Harris as Deputy Marshal, Eddie Kafafian as Bud, and Kermit Maynard as Outlaw.
Flesh in the Spur opens with a shot of a rider on a horse with spurs on his boots, and the title comes up right away. Once that's passed, we see a jailbreak in progress.
The man jumps down from the stone wall surrounding the prison and sneaks up behind a guard and stabs him. He falls to the ground, briefly rallies, and gets off a shot at the escaping prisoner, before dying, I guess. The noise rouses another guard, who comes out of the gate and takes a shot at the runaway prisoner. But even though he stumbles, he keeps running, and we never see his face.
The convict continues running and stumbling through the desert as the credits play out. Now we're on a farm, and a farmer is returning his horse to the barn. The striped-wearing convict seems to have taken refuge in this same barn. The convict picks up a shovel, and as the farmer dismounts his horse, the convict bashes the farmer in the back of the head. A very nice gun is holstered onto the horse. The convict takes the gun and, after taking a moment to admire it, shoots the farmer in the back as he starts to come to. Another man out in the field hears the shot and runs toward the barn, drawing his own gun. In the barn, the convict mounts the horse and rides off as the other man shoots at him. He gets off 2 shots before giving up because the horse and his rider are now well out of range.
This man goes to see the man who's been shot, but as he turns over the body, we see not only is this man dead, but the two share the same face. These are the twins, Matt and Luke Random.
They also share the face of actor John Agar.
Well, yeah. And then the song My Brother and I plays. It's a mournful song done by Ross Bagdasarian, better known as the man behind Alvin and the Chipmunks. Song's kind of boring, if you ask me. Needs more chipmunks.
The song plays as Luke buries his twin brother. The tombstone reads Matthew Random, born August 15, 1851, died April 15, 1882, killed for his gun and his horse. I think. The dates were a little fuzzy on the print that we watched.
A lot of things were fuzzy on the print we were watching. Because according to the credits, this is in pathé color, but no color prints exist anymore, at least not that we could find. So we're watching it in glorious black and white. Another man rides up to the barn, and Luke goes to see who it is. It's the marshal, or the deputy marshal. He's looking for an escaped convict. Luke says, "That's probably who killed my brother." The marshal gives his condolences and says that man was one of the Checkers gang. Luke declares that he'll find him, teeth bared. He's got the twin to this gun, he says, holding a weapon identical to the one stolen by the killer. The marshal advises caution. This man, with no name, is fast on the trigger. That Luke just walks into the barn.
Now we catch up with the convict who has dismounted his horse and he appears to be milking it. I don't know what he's doing. He's kneeling by his horse. Anyway, a group of 6 riders on horseback come up slowly. One points out the convict and another shoots him. The 6 riders ride up to the fallen convict and one grabs his gun, the gun. Then they ride off, leaving the convict for dead. As they ride off, the convict stirs. He's not dead.
He seems to be unkillable. Now we're back to the opening shot. Boots, spurs, horseflesh. It's Luke. He's riding into town, going to the gunsmith shop. The man is already out on his porch, deck, and Luke says that he's looking for a gun. Not just any gun, a particular gun. He shows the smith his gun, and the man appraises it. A .48, an unusual weapon.
The gunsmith has an eye for guns, like most men have for women.
Luke says that he's looking for the twin to this gun, but the smith claims he's not seen one. Luke says, "You could be lying," and the smith retorts, "You could be crazy." Luke rides off as the smith offers to buy his gun, saying, "I'm looking to buy, not sell." And Luke rides on.
And he rides, and he rides, and he rides, and he rides. He comes across a small lake, and he and his horse stop for a drink. Nearby, another man rides up to the same lake. A Native American woman is bathing in the lake. She screams as the man approaches. Luke hears the scream and rides off to investigate. He sees the man trying to drown the woman, so Luke dives into the lake to rescue her. Luke grabs the other men and punches are thrown, giving the woman an opportunity to escape. Luke pulls on his gun, and as the other man draws, a shot rings out. Luke looks around. It wasn't he who pulled the trigger.
No, another man is pulled up to this popular roadside attraction. This new guy chuckles heartily as Luke spins around, confused at this turn of events. Luke hauls himself out of the water to greet the newcomer. "Good shot," says Luke. "Thanks." This newcomer asks about the woman, but Luke supposes she just swam away. The new guy is confident that she'll be back, though, as this is no place for a lone and stranded female. Then he holds out his hand for Luke's gun.
He goes, "May I see it?" He looks it over and says, "It's a nice gun and has paper cartridges." He points the gun at Luke and pulls the trigger twice, and it just clicks. Luke belts the man, sending him into the lake. Then Luke says he was taught it was bad manners to point a gun at anyone, much less pull the trigger. The man is still laughing. "Finally, I've got someone to teach me manners," he says. "When I was trying to teach you good sense, you can't fire a paper cartridge when it's wet."
Luke says that he knows that, but he was hoping it didn't apply to his gun.
He may not know much about guns, he says, but he does know how to throw a good left. Luke smiles. They're friends now.
Luke says he's lucky the man showed up. And the new guy says that wasn't luck. He was trailing that man. He's one of the Checkers gang, and he has a personal beef with them. Luke declares that they should go dry off in front of a fire, and arm in arm they go to make it so.
By the fire, Luke is reloading his gun. The other man, who we will soon learn is named Stacey, tells him that if he's going to go against the Checkers gang, he should get a fast-action Colt and not use that old farmer's gun. But Luke is going to take his chances. After all, he's only looking for one of them. Besides, this gun was a gift from his father. He and his twin brother Matthew had received matching guns. They hear a sound and look around. It's the Native American woman who has come back to retrieve her clothing. They don't see her, though, and continue their conversation.
Stace thinks that Luke must have had a fine life to feel that way. He had a great family, too. His mom ran off with a faro dealer from St. Joe when he was only 4 months old, and his pappy didn't even know about it for 5 more months after that. He was too busy with a breed woman, which in this context means a half-Indian, half-white woman. Luke asks what Stace wants with these Checkers. Stace says that Luke chose to spill his guts, but he did not. Luke's bummed. He hoped the two could ride together in pursuit of the gang. Stace warms to this idea. He'd be happy to help Luke find his brother's killer. Stace laughs. Stacey Doggett doing a good deed for once. Huh. Stace tells Luke he'll live longer if Stace rides with him, and they shake hands on riding together.
As they shake hands, another sound comes from the bush behind them. Stacey runs behind it and starts laughing, accompanied by the sounds of a woman's screams. Stacey brings out the struggling Native American woman who breaks free and stands behind Luke. When Stacey reaches for her, Luke gives him a shove. "I can't pull a gun on you," Stacey says, "not till I teach you to shoot." Luke asks the woman's name. It's Willow.
Just Willow. Stacey wants to know if she's a breed, but she says she's Havasupai, full blood. "They breed my favorite horses. And women," says Stace, lasciviously. The woman says that the horses are easier to handle, and I wonder what horrible things he's done to both.
Luke invites Willow to stay for dinner. They're having rabbit. They all sit by the fire, and Willow keeps staring at Stace. Stace asks her the name of the fellow that attacked her, the one that he killed. His name was Pete Longo. She was running away from him. Stacey said he knew his name. He just wanted to know if she did. Luke asked her if she knows the rest of the Checkers gang. Some of them, she admits. Luke asks if she's seen any of them with a gun like his, but she says that she hasn't.
Luke asks where Willow's going to go now. Back to her people? Stace says she has no people. Once a woman takes off with a white man, the tribe holds a burial ceremony, and now she's dead to them. Willow says Pete was going to teach her all that was good about the white men, and after that 5 minutes elapsed, he taught her nothing but shame and ugliness. Luke asks where they were headed, and she says Redbud in the Oklahoma Territory. And Luke tells Stace that now they have somewhere to aim for, which Willow takes the credit for.
Luke asks Willow if she will accompany them. It would be a lot easier to find the Checkers gang if they had someone who knew what they looked like. After confirming that the Checkers gang are friends to neither Luke nor Stacey, she agrees to go with them. But, she tells them, whatever she may have done in the past, she's not a saloon girl.
You know what that means.
Luke goes to fetch Willow's pants from the bush while Stacey hits on her.
Stacey says that he likes a woman with some resistance. Not much, but some. Ew.
Luke comes back and tells Stacey to knock it off. They've got a shortcut, why risk losing it? Stacey promises he won't lay eyes or a finger on her. He won't even sniff at her.
Ew.
And Luke will see that he doesn't. Stacey is amused at the idea of having a big brother looking over his shoulder.
He cracks wise about going to Sunday school and reading the Bible, but Stacey goes off to sleep alone, and Willow tells Luke that she'll go with him. Later, Willow wakes and goes to caress the gun of a sleeping Luke. She makes off with it. Luke wakes up and follows her. He asks what the heck she's doing, but she's just trying to remember where she'd seen one like it before. She lied earlier because she didn't want Stacey to know that she had seen it. He is not your friend, she advises. He's like Pete.
She had been trying to remember where she saw the gun, only now Luke is here and her mind is empty. Luke tells Willow she's beautiful, and Willow says that she is not trained in the ways of his white sisters, but that she wanted to hear him say that. Then they share a kiss. Then Luke breaks away. The three of them have a contract. Willow says she set the rules, and she can break them. But Luke is standing firm. Willow suggests that Stacey has filled his head with ideas about her. Maybe, maybe not, says Luke. Willow tells him that Stacey is the one to fear and to watch out for him.
But pig-headed Luke refuses to listen. Later, they're finally ready to head out. Stacey's counseling Luke that women are bad luck on a journey like this, especially breed women. Stacey thinks that Willow might be setting them up after all. Luke doesn't see it that way. Stacey says that he will kill her if it comes to it. And he'll kill Luke too if he has to. Luke says, likewise.
They call out to Willow that they're ready to go, and Willow mounts her horse. Stacey takes Luke aside and says, Havasupai women make good cooks and they mind real good. You just gotta know how to treat them. Watch this. Stacey flings open his pack and his cookware falls out onto the ground. Willow looks down at the mess, then rides her horse past Stacey, laughing as she does so. Luke says that was a silly thing to do, and Stacey tells him to shut up as he dismounts his horse to repack his stuff.
What a confident idiot. Further on down the road, the gang run into a man and a woman driving their wagon. Willow tells Luke that she's seen that woman with Longo's men before. The man pulls his rifle out and threatens Stace, who calls him out for his undoctorly behavior. We don't see it, but the wagon declares that he is Windy Wagon Wheels, the man of medicine. We'll see that sign later, but for now, just take our word for it. Stace declares his throat is parched. He needs some assistance from the doctor. But the doctor's blabbering on about how he can shoot the parts off a cockroach from 3 miles away. Okay, boomer. And Stace climbs aboard as the doctor figures out he can make a sail.
There is a smaller wagon behind the larger one, and Luke rides back to check this one out. The woman driving the wagon is all hello, sailor, to Luke as he rides up, but then is disappointed to see Willow come up behind him. I am his guardian, says Willow. I have an idea he will need one. Up front, Stacey is receiving a gulp of medicine when a man on horseback sneaks out from the bushes at the side of the road. He whistles and gets the attention of the woman on the passenger side. She nods, and the man rides back into the brush.
After literally pouring a shot down Stacey's hatch, the men hammer out their transaction. 1 bottle for $1. And Stace turns his inconsiderable charms on the woman riding with Windy. Windy pulls a gun on him and says, not with my daughter, you don't. She's pure and innocent. Haha. So Stace asks to buy another bottle.
Stace says that since they're all going to Redbud, that maybe they could all ride together. After all, 3 guns are better than 1. Windy thinks about this and agrees it's a good idea, and they will all prepare to camp right there that night.
And so they do. Windy and Luke talk guns. Luke doesn't care for them, what with one killing his brother and all. Windy says some guns kill and some save, then shows Luke some of his gun tricks. And then he shows him the border roll. Jeff, what's the border roll?
It's kind of holding the gun upside down and backwards in your hand and flipping it around into a shooting position.
You described it so much better than I could.
Windy asks Luke who he's gunning for. Luke says, who says I was gunning for someone. But Windy can see it in Luke's eyes. He warns Luke that Stacey is too good for him. But Luke is just amused by this. He's not gunning for Stacey. Then Windy says, he's gunning for you. Luke takes Windy by the shoulder and says that he and Stacey get along just fine. They're interrupted by the sound of laughter. It's Stacey and Lola, who was the woman in the second wagon, snuggled in the back of said wagon.
Windy hears this and gets angry. That's what comes from dragging her around to saloons and other shady places. Windy claims that at least his daughter Rena was raised to fear God, and her father, who vows he'll kill her if she ever became anything but a God-fearing woman. Stace is telling Lola some drunken story as Lola tries to mac on him.
The story isn't important and ends without a climax, so he and Lola make their own with a kiss.
I like that.
Rena and Willow are hanging out together elsewhere in the camp when the man from the bushes once again emerges and whistles. Rena asks Willow not to tell her father about this man. Willow asks why he only comes to her in the dark. Is he an outlaw? Perhaps one of the Checkers gang? Rena tells Willow that she should mind her own business.
Her dad would hand him over to the sheriff and kill her, as he's already promised.
The two of them go to where Luke and Wendy had been talking. Rena tells her father goodnight, then goes to the carriage where Stacey and Lola are once again laughing loudly. I'm coming to bed, Lola, she announces, so Stacey slowly leaves to make room for Rena.
Later, Stace asks Luke to demonstrate his gun twirling skills. Luke tries that border roll move, and Stace says he's still not good, but he's getting better. Then he tells Luke to draw for $1.
Luke tells Stacey he's drunk and just to go to bed, but Stacey keeps goading him, so Luke relents and they both draw. Stacey is a little faster, but says that Luke is getting better all the time.
You just might get that checker at that, he says. Sometime later that night, Rita sneaks out of her wagon to meet her beau, but her dad is right behind her. Rena waves at the man on his horse. He's wearing a mask, so we don't see his face. Wendy gets off a shot, scaring the man off. Rena declares that he won't always be able to stop her, but Wendy just barks, why won't he take off his mask? Does he have a wife and kids? Rena says she doesn't know. He asks if she knows his name, and she says, I never thought to ask. Wendy yells at his stubborn daughter that he will find and kill this man. Then he drags her off to the wagons.
Now we're in Redbud, where Wendy Wagon Wheels, the world's best shot and doctor, has set up shop at the local saloon. Stacey and Luke are pacing around outside when Willow runs up to them. She hasn't seen any familiar Checkers gang faces in town. Luke tells her that he and Stacey will be in the saloon while Willow continues to scout around town. In the saloon, Wendy is performing his show. The bartender tells Stacey and Luke that he can't serve them unless they hang up their guns and holsters on the wall by the door.
On stage, Wendy is demonstrating his shooting powers after drinking his 80-proof tonic by shooting at Rena. She's against the back wall of the stage. He's shooting over his shoulder, looking behind him in a hand mirror. He gets off a couple shots, and he doesn't hit his daughter. But Lola tells him that his shots are coming too close to Rena. Wendy's not bothered at the thought of shooting his kid, though. She's been a bad girl.
Wendy shoots again. It's another near miss, and the crowd erupts in applause. When Luke and Stacey go to hang up their guns, they notice a holster with a gun that matches Luke's. Looks like you've got yourself a pair, says Stacey. They look around the room. At a corner table, a group of 5 men, one who just happens to be an uncredited Jonathan Hayes, I noticed, are playing poker.
One of the checkers motions to his boss that someone's taken too much interest in their firearms. The boss sends the underling outside. Stace asks if Luke is ready to get to work, but the bartender comes up to remind them to hang up their guns or be tossed out. Wendy's show is still going on. Luke walks around all the tables, glaring at the patrons. Wendy gets his rifle and takes his final shot. As Lola and Rena have switched places, he's shooting at Lola now. The shot blows her dress off. It's supposed to be comical. She scuttles off stage, and that's the end of the show. Thank you and good night.
While scouring the room, Luke notices a bandana hanging from the pocket of one of the men in the corner. Luke pulls the man up and decks him, and one of the other men grabs a chair and knocks Luke down. Stacey reaches for his gun on the wall, but the bartender is immediately in his face, reminding him of the rules. The man that Luke attacked lifts his boot and prepares to stomp on Luke, aiming his spur for the best contact, but he's grabbed by Stacey. Stacey rips the spur from his own boot. You want to play with spurs, he says? Play with me.
And thus begins the legendary spur fight that the movie was named after.
The two men fight with spurs flailing and slashing. Stacey takes a huge slash across his chest.
While this goes on, the Checkers leader gets his belt and Luke's brother's gun.
He nods at Rena on the stage, and she smiles and runs off. Wendy is too entranced by the fight to notice this. The fight continues, but ends suddenly when Stacey runs his spur along the throat of the other man. Stacey gathers Luke, and the two of them go back to the doorway where they left their guns. Luke notices right away that his brother's gun is missing.
Wendy has now noticed that Rena is gone. He confronts Lola, who claims Rena just went to the wagon. Wendy declares he'll find her, but Lola cautions him, don't go, they'll kill you. But Wendy goes anyways. Luke and Stace run up to Lola and try to get her to admit where Rena's headed, but Lola says she doesn't know. Stace slaps her to Luke's mild consternation. Lola gives out the crucial location of into the woods somewhere, which is enough to satisfy Stace. He and Luke take off as Lola caresses her cheek.
Luke and Stace are on horseback, following the trail of the man they're seeking. That can give them a better look around. But Luke has found something. It's Rena's body left at the side of the road. Stace sends Luke off to get the sheriff, and says he'll go and get Wendy. As they both ride off, the man from the bushes comes out from hiding, and then he rides off himself.
At Rena's funeral service, Wendy says he loved his dead slut daughter.
She's being buried in the Redbud churchyard. Lola tells Luke and Stace that Wendy sold his wagon and the whole show. She says she can't blame him and hopes he gets Tanner. Tanner? Asks Stacey. Lola says she covered for Rena when she was alive, but she won't cover for the man that killed her. The man they're looking for is Kale Tanner, the biggest checker. Willow asks if he has a big scar across his face. Lola confirms this, and Willow says that Tanner is one of Longo's friends, an important friend. Luke says they'll pick up their important friend's tracks where they found Rena's body.
They split as Wendy admonishes the gravedigger for slapping down the dirt on Rena's grave. A short time later, Wendy catches up with 3. He's going to track Tanner too and claims that he can handle the long trek. Plus, he's a crack shot, and Stace agrees. Wendy asks where the tracks lead, and Willow points the way. They're pretty obvious, so it's not that hard. And then they ride on. Later they make camp, and Wendy wonders where Willow went, and says he doesn't trust her. She's leading them into Indian territory. Stace agrees and goes to find her. Stace sees her standing alone on a rock, and he grins. Luke tells Wendy that Willow said she'd never go back to her people. Wendy hopes so for his sake. Unlike Wendy, he's got a lot of living to do yet.
Stacey has joined Willow atop that rock. "You like your lovemaking rough and rugged, don't you?" he says. "When it is love," she replies. Stacey grabs Willow and forces a kiss onto her. In response, Willow forces a knife against Stacey's throat. When Stacey notices, he is livid. He belts Willow again and again. Just then, Luke stumbles along and, seeing a woman being assaulted, this sets him off. He grabs Stacey and the two of them duke it out. Wendy comes around to see the fight as well. After a minute, Wendy decides to break it up, and the best way to do that is with a peace offering, and the best peace offering he has is a slug of Wendy's Wonder Water. Stacey has a drink, and then reluctantly, so does Luke. He laughs, Luke laughs, and they're all friends again. So now Wendy can take a drink as well.
They ride on and on. At last they find something, a cave at the end of the horse tracks. They look at the tracks and note that there are many different tracks, and they're about 4 hours old. I don't know how they can tell that. Stace offers to ride around scouting for the bad guys, or Indians, whoever he finds first. Alone with Willow, Wendy asks if her people are still on the warpath. Willow has no idea. To them, she is a white woman, and if she returns to her people, they will kill her.
Stacey, who has ridden on ahead, looks out at the canyons. There are a lot of rocky formations, aka hiding places.
Luke rides up to Willow. The two are alone now. Luke says he never knows what she's thinking. Willow asks if he wants to know, and Luke can't decide if he does. Willow says one day you will not have to ask, even though he didn't. Luke says Stace has had long enough, and they decide to go out after him. But he's not 10 minutes ahead. He's waiting for them. He claims he didn't want to get lost in the canyons, but he will now. He says he'll go west at every turn so that they can follow him, even if they don't see him.
So Stace rides on ahead, and we see 4 members of the Checkers gang climb up over the hills with their guns drawn. Stacey sees this too and cries out, "Yahoo! Yippee!" He shoots at them, and they shoot back, and Stacey shoots back again. Stacey is thrown by his horse, and he rolls down a hill and comes up still shooting as he crawls away for cover. Luke, Willow, and Wendy hear the gunfire, and Luke rides off.
And the other two follow him. The battle's still raging, and between the 4 of them, they hit a handful of Checkers, but not all of them. Luke gets a wounded Stace back into the cave, where Wendy treats him with his Wendy's Wonder Water. They examine Stace's wound. It could be worse. It just went straight through him between his ribs. They send Willow to find something to stanch the bleeding. Wendy calls Stace the most reckless man he's ever known. Then they find an older wound, probably the one from the beginning of the movie. Stace says he was shot by a bunch of men and only survived because a horse doctor put tar on the bullet hole to stop the bleeding. Luke looks really confused in his close-up.
That should have killed him too. So Stace figures his time is coming any moment, so he feels that he must take every risk possible because there's nothing to lose in doing so. Wendy offers him some of Wendy's Wonder Water.
Now it's nighttime. Wendy wakes Luke up so he can take over the night watch. But he says there's nothing to worry about until morning. There's nothing out there. Luke rides off dutifully anyway. Wendy and Willow chat by the fire. He calls her an odd little Indian, and she says she's not Havasupai anymore. Out here, she's in more danger than he is. He asks for her backstory, and she obliges. She was a rebel. She was a medicine man's daughter. She read the books of the white man, and she tried to share their wisdom with the tribe. They weren't interested, though, and tried to get her to swear off this knowledge, and when she refused, she was banished. She says she's not asking for sympathy. She's paying for what she did with Longo and all of it. Wendy says that he is also paying for Rena. Willow says if people see her, they will not let her live, so she must tell him what she thinks. That Stace was in Checker's gang. Wendy wants to know is she sure? He's gunning for them too, but Willow is convinced, and all she wants is for Wendy to look out for Luke. Like he was my own flesh and blood, vows Wendy.
A few days later, Stacey is up and about again. Luke comments on how he's healed so quickly. Ever seen a sick dead man? Asks Stacey. Then he bends over to touch his toes to show that he's all flexible and stuff. So Luke challenges him to a draw for $1. They both go for their guns, but this time Luke is a little bit faster. Looks like you're still sick, kids, Luke. Yeah, I guess so, says Stace.
We never see Luke practicing, though. That's kind of weird.
Willow has been taking the watch, and she notices several men riding over the hill. She calls back to Luke and Wendy, and they and Stacey ride up to where she's been standing guard. They see several members of the Checkers gang coming down the hill. Looks like a rush, says Stacey, and he leads the others behind some rocks for cover. Kale Tanner shoots his gun into the air to signal the Checkers' charge.
And now the shooting begins.
Gunfire is exchanged from both directions, and several Checkers fall from their horses, enough that Kale Tanner orders a retreat. Stacey tells Luke he done good, and once you're past the first killing, the rest are easy. Willow, who had taken the horses back to safety, is on her way back. One member of the Checkers gang hadn't retreated and instead doubled back to surprise Luke, Stacey, and Wendy from behind. But Willow sees him and stabs the man in the back with her knife as Stacey, Luke, and Wendy look back in surprise. Willow joins them and reports that Tanner and the gang are headed west, Havasupai territory.
And they ride on. They come across one corpse and decide that Kale Tanner must have shot him for slowing them down. Then they find some unshod hoof prints and realize that the Havasupai are tracking them. They always were, declares Willow. And indeed, we see a Havasupai scouting party start to ride home after spotting the men in Willow. Now they walk on, going to make camp. Wendy and Stace are talking. Wendy thinks it's as quiet as the grave out there, and Stace needles him about Rena's grave. Wendy says being a father is hard, and asks for the deets on Stace's dad. Stace gripes that he's nothing, it's just an outlaw, and Wendy says, so are you. Stace denies it, but Wendy asks what else is he able to do. Wendy says Luke had a good dad, and Willow certainly tried with her, and he did too with Rena. Stace points out how well that turned out, and Wendy scoffs that Stace's dad only taught him how to ride, beat up women, and kill men.
Willow is seated atop a rock, and Luke joins her. He says he once asked her full name, but she wouldn't tell him. Willow says that's because it's a name that makes white men laugh. Luke asks her again, and she tells him Wild Willow. Luke thinks that's a right purty name. Willow asks Luke if he thinks she is wild. He says she could be. Then he mentions Stace has a bit of wildness himself. Willow is angered at the sound of Stace's name. He has a small spot of goodness in him, and it grows smaller each day, she says. Luke says that Stace is all right, and Willow tells him that if he believes that, he will one day be just like him. Her people have a saying, the man who barks like a dog will one day grow a tail. Luke laughs and says he may bark like Stace, but he doesn't bare his fangs as often, and besides, he wouldn't care to come across that knife of hers. She pulls him closer. You would not have to be afraid. A solemn look comes over Luke. Stace and I made a promise. Willow reminds him that Stace broke his promise, and does Luke still feel bound by his? But Luke stands and says that he made another promise to himself, to find Matt's gun and the man who killed him. Anything else will have to wait. So Willow offers to wander with him. As two, they can share the pain without the loneliness. They kiss, but then Luke shakes her off and tells her to forget about him. He's got a long way to go, and he has to go alone.
Stace and Wendy notice that the two of them aren't alone anymore. They go to chide Luke for not keeping watch. They decide to get ready to fight, telling Willow to stay with the horses and take care of them. Stace sneaks up where Tanner and some of his minions are standing. He overhears Tanner tell one of his minions that he can't see anything. Then Stace follows them as they retreat. And then the shootout begins.
Luke tries to take the high ground, but rolls back down the hill when he realizes he's being shot at. Luke shoots back, but he's in no position to hit his target. Wendy has tucked himself between two rocks, and he takes a swig of his wonder water. A checker strolls right by him, and Wendy gleefully shoots him in the back. Then Wendy rewards himself with another drink. Stacey also shoots a man as he passes by. Luke takes cover behind a tree and checks his gun. A shot just misses him. Luke points his gun and shoots, and the man goes down. Stacey comes around a rock. He's looking upward, trying to be alert to his surroundings. He doesn't see a man on the other side of the rock watching and waiting for him. The man jumps out, and Stacey quickly turns around and pulls the trigger. The man goes down. Luke goes back over to Wendy's hiding place. He asks Wendy if he knows where Stace is. The sound of laughter echoes throughout the canyon. Out there, says Wendy. Sounds like he's having a good time. Luke suggests they go back to their camp.
Back at the camp, they're able to see another Havasupai party. Willow says that they'll wait till the battle ends and then pick off the winners.
I guess those checkers are in for a hell of an Indian fight, says Stace.
Tanner's men square up for battle, and then Luke, Wendy, and Stace hide behind some rocks, leaving Willow alone. The Havasupai party sneaks up on Willow and grab her. Luke wants to save her, but Stace won't let him go. He needs his gun here. So they fight the checkers as the Havasupai tie Willow to a stake, stripping her. Ants crawl up her feet.
Gunfire is still echoing throughout the camp. Whenever Windy hits one, he drops his gun so he can pick up his bottle and reward himself. Then the gunfire stops. Kale Tanner peeks out, so he's still around, but Stace, Luke, and Windy feel they can relax for a moment. Screw Willow, I guess. Windy pulls on his wind organ and starts playing a song. He says he doesn't remember what it's called, but both his wife and Rena used to like it. From a distance, Kale Tanner takes aim and shoots Windy. Then Tanner rides off, and Luke and Stace mount their horses to give chase.
The Havasupai men come across Windy's body. They act like they're about to scalp him, but instead they sample his wonder water. They do not care for it. Luke and Stace get close enough to Tanner to shoot him, but Stace can't do it. Luke kills him, berating Stace for almost letting Tanner get away. He didn't get away, growls Stace. Then they go to the body where they find Matt's gun.
Well, Mr. Random, says Stace, you finally got yourself the pair. Luke smiles and nods. Think he saw you did it, continues Stace. That I couldn't pull the trigger on him? Luke asks Stace what he's talking about, and Stace just looks Luke in the eye and says bluntly, you just now killed my father. Luke is trying to piece this all together. Kale Tanner? Stace explains that Luke did what Stace came all this way to do himself. One day Stace took the Checkers gang away from him, and one night Tanner shot him and took them back.
Stace reckons that they're even now. You killed my father, and I killed your brother.
Luke is still having a difficult time processing this.
Luke refuses to believe it, so Stace spells out how he escaped prison, saw Matt, and blew him away. He's pretty cocky here. He challenges Luke to a border rule duel, and Luke silently agrees. The two back up a few paces and hang their guns on their trigger fingers. Luke asks if Stace is sure he wants it that way. Stace never answers.
They perform their roles, Luke is faster, and Stace goes down. The Havasupai start hooting and hollering, and this reminds Luke, oh yeah, Willow had been captured a while ago, and he'd better go rescue her. He rides up to where she's still struggling with the stake and the ants. He grabs a blanket from the pack on his horse and covers Willow. Then he unties her. He helps her onto his horse, and they ride off through the desert as Ross Bagdasarian once again performs My Brother and I.
And that's the end. Welcome back to the American International Podcast, where we're talking about Flesh and the Spur from 1956.
The original title of Flesh and the Spur was Dead Man's Gun. The title Flesh and the Spur apparently came from both the Spur fight between Connors and stuntman Tom Steele in the saloon and the anthill scene where Marla English's character is stripped of her clothing. Steele is listed as one of Hollywood's top stuntmen, along with Dave Sharp and Dale Van Sickle, who both appear in the film.
And that's AIP's press book calling them Hollywood's top stuntmen. Mike Touch Connors signed a deal with AIP in 1956 to produce 3 pictures annually for the next 4 years, allowing him to produce as well as star in one film each year. Flesh and the Spur was the first picture he produced.
In his role as executive producer of Flesh and the Spur, Connors, along with Charles Lyons, raised the film's budget of $117,000 from friends of his from Armenia. He recalled being called into a meeting with AIP's James H. Nicholson, Samuel Z. Arkoff, and Alex Gordon. In a move typical for AIP, they showed him the movie poster mock-up showing barely clad leading lady Marla English tied to a stake with fire ants crawling on her. Connors remarked that there was no such scene in the script. The AIP heads replied that the movie had been pre-sold on the basis of Albert Callis's artwork and that the anthill torture scene would be written in later.
During the production of that scene, producer Alex Gordon recalled dropping ants on the bound and gagged Marla English. However, the ants wouldn't remain on her body long enough to be filmed. Marla finally, once ungagged, complained to Gordon, "Look, you've got 6 ants there. Isn't that enough?"
A syndicated column written by Hedda Hopper and published in various papers reported in June of 1956 that English and Agar had been signed to co-star in the film.
In a July 1956 edition of Luella Parsons' gossip column, it was reported that John Agar sprained his ankle during a fight with Touch Connors.
The AIP press book states that the entire company traveled several hundred miles to desert locations so that the color cameras could capture the full beauty of the natural desert and mountains. Contemporary news sources say Flesh and the Spur was shot on location at various ranches in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, and the press book mentions that one was Gene Autry's famous movie ranch.
Ronald Stein wrote the movie score, and as we've already mentioned, Ross Bagdasarian was commissioned to write the song My Brother and I. The Variety review of Flesh and the Spur lists Ronald Sinclair as the film editor, and HR Production charts listed Bob Benson as editor. However, only Robert S. Eisen was credited on screen. Benson and Sinclair's contributions to the film, if any, have not been confirmed.
The credits and copyright records list Pathé Color as the color process, but apparently all color prints of the film have been lost.
That's unfortunate. Though Connors put up his own money, plus money he raised from friends for the film, and despite the film's apparent success, he said he never received any of the film's profits due to Samuel Arkoff's, quote, creative bookkeeping.
Flesh and the Spur was previewed at the Cornell Theater in Burbank on September 15, 1956, as announced by Charles Lyons, who hosted a gala party at his father's house after the preview. It was officially released on September 25, 1956, on a double bill with Naked Paradise. Although popular, it was the last Western made by AIP, who henceforth preferred to concentrate on genres more specifically targeted at the teenage audience.
And I guess that's discounting California from 1963, which basically was a Western, I would say. It's one of our early episodes. The film is listed as having its official release in January of 1957 in some of the trades, though. It was still being released in various markets and charting as late as September of 1957. This is obviously due to the practice of movies not opening nationwide. They open in different markets at different times, as the prints have to keep traveling from city to city.
AIP's press book recommended that theater owners hold contests to promote the film by either asking patrons to supply a list of famous Western stars, spot the ones who appear in the movie, or by listing other football stars who became actors, in honor of former UCLA football star Mike "Touch" Connors. AIP also recommended putting a display of world-famous composer Ross Bagdasarian's record My Brother and I in local music stores to generate interest.
Taglines for Flesh and the Spur include raw violence, naked fury, her fate staked on the anthill, his future in a killer's gun.
Some used guns. He chose spurs to avenge his brother's killer.
That's not true. Out to avenge his brother's murder.
A savage, shocking Western packed with raw fury and naked realism.
Lots of raw and naked things in this movie. Martin Dickstein in the Brooklyn Daily News wrote, "You'd probably never guess it from the titles, but Naked Paradise and Flesh and the Spur afford some beautiful cinematography of scenic Hawaii and California. Both pictures are in color, and both, according to the theater owner, are replete with thrills, stunts, fights, and excitement."
Fred W. Fox in the Los Angeles Mirror dinged the double bill, saying, "The faint snoring of a youth curled up in a seat across the aisle would be the best testimony I could offer for the soporific dual bill now screening. Agar and Connors should have been produced with an utterly simple routine to emote. Flesh and the Spur is a story with dialogue that might befell Brando and Kazan. Marla English here is as short on acting talent as she elsewhere is long on pulchritude. She seems unable to cope with spoken lines. What happens to the three is what you can find out if you stay awake through the movie."
Helen Bauer wrote in her Detroit Free Press review of Naked Paradise and Flesh and the Spur, American International is a company apparently too new to have been listed in the 1956 Film Daily Yearbook as an exhibitor-owned company. This being true, I can only say that its product must reflect desperation on the part of those responsible for its two-picture packages. The current duo deals in adventure and action, as compared to science fiction, horror, rock and roll, and other delinquency themes, but shock, sock, and thrill are the only intentions of these pictures. Under the guise of adventure and action, sadistic brutality and violence are given full play.
Edith Lindemann of the Richmond Times-Dispatch wrote that Flesh and the Spur sounds like the title of a foreign film or a heavy drama or even a somewhat sordid saga of the underworld. It turned out to be nothing more than a Western about a man who goes out to kill the murderer of his brother. She then gives away the ending, saying that when last seen, Agar had rescued Marla from an anthill, where she has been trussed up by vengeful Indians and they are riding off across the corpse-strewn desert.
In the Memphis Press Scimitar, the reviewer wrote, "This one is a Western in which 3 men and an Indian maiden go gunning for an outlaw leader. The Indian maiden apparently goes along for the ride. It doesn't turn out to be much of a lark for her, however, for her own people capture her, and as punishment for fraternizing with the white man, she is tied to a stake over an anthill. It isn't much of a lark for the audience either."
We did find one reviewer who loved it, though. The writer for the Eunice, Louisiana News called Flesh and the Spur a suspenseful drama of the outdoors, saying popular John Agar and fascinating Marla English head the cast of this exciting drama of 2,000 miles of terrifying suspense.
At the movie's preview, Connors approached writer Chuck Griffith in the lobby and asked him how he liked the film. Griffith reportedly answered, "Better luck next time." Well, that's a lot of negative talk about this movie. Did you feel that way?
The stuff that they brought up as negative wasn't the stuff that bothered me. I was more concerned about what they're doing with all these horses.
They did kind of leave them littered across the desert, didn't they?
When Stace is first shot by the Checkers gang, when he's still in his black and whites, they leave his horse sitting there. And the first time I watched it, I was wondering, why doesn't Luke recognize his brother's horse when Stace rides up? But I think it's a different horse. The coloring looks different.
It's like when car thieves have to change cars because they're being tracked in the one car. Maybe he had to change horses just so nobody would recognize it as stolen. We just didn't see that part.
And then at the end, there's 4 horses that Wendy and Willow and Stace and Luke had all ridden in on, plus Tanner's horse. He was on a horse that he jumped off of. So there's 5 horses up there, and then Luke and Willow leave on 1. So there's still 4 horses up there. I guess the Indians can have them.
I don't know. I think the one reviewer had a good point about John Agar's acting. I wouldn't say so much about Touch Connor's. His role was basically to be a jerk, and he played that very well. But John Agar just had me laughing throughout the movie. The faces he pulled, his character being so very stupid.
Luke is a very simple fellow.
He seems too simple to even take care of himself.
It's shown that whenever something aggressive happens, he kind of just laughs it off. He starts smiling and thinks everybody's just kidding with him all the time. And then everybody just goes with it.
And every time I wrote his name down, I just put the word dumb in front of it. Dumb Luke. Everyone tells him that Stace is a bad guy, but he just wants to be this guy's bro and he doesn't care. But he's just pulling these terrible faces all the time. Either he looks completely dumbfounded.
Well, he is.
Well, yeah, but like there's absolutely nothing going on inside of his noggin. Or he's baring his lower teeth trying to pretend like he's angry. He looks like a dog with an underbite. I don't know how to describe it any better than that, but it's just really not working for me. I just don't like him in this movie at all.
Well, it's funny because his smile is the exact same look, except his lips curl up a little bit on the sides.
Right. It just looks like a dog trying to pretend like it's friendly, but it also has an underbite. That's probably my biggest problem with this movie. I think everyone else does a fine job. It's not really a big, complicated story. I think they could have made it a lot more interesting. Maybe having Willow be the bad guy with Stace. Like if it would be like in a more of a moral gray area instead of this is all black hat, white hat. There's nobody who's partly good, partly bad. Stace pretends to be good, but he's not at all.
He doesn't really pretend that hard.
He doesn't have to because the object of his pretense is totally stupid and wouldn't believe it if even Stace said, yeah, I'm a bad guy. I killed your brother. He'd just chuckle and be like, oh, you're funning me. And then they shake hands and go drink some Wonder Water. The movie seems to have a pretty high body count. It is pretty violent. When I was looking through all the old newspapers to find reviews for this movie or information on the production, there are a couple papers that would print basically their moral ratings of movies. And this one came up as morally questionable, not condemned, but just morally dubious. And it was said that this was strictly for adults. It's not for children. And I don't really see it being a problem for kids these days, but I guess they were a lot more innocent back then.
I wondered if they were so innocent that that twist ending would come as a twist. I thought it was pretty obvious right away that Stace was the guy who killed him at random.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But would anybody have seen this once upon a time and not thought that?
No, the only person surprised was Luke because he's just not smart enough to think things through.
And even at the end when they reveal that Kale Tanner was Stace's father, you may not have seen that coming, but the minute that he gets shot, you can tell because it's all in Touch Connor's performance that this man meant something to him.
That's why he couldn't pull the trigger. The minute you see him hold his gun and not fire, then you know that this is that dad he's been carping about the entire movie.
And we saw Touch Connors play a similar character in Oklahoma one. I don't think he was quite as nasty in that one.
Borderline.
But then he went on to appear in Shake, Rattle, and Rock, which is the first one that we covered that we saw him in. And right. I wonder if we would have looked at his character differently had we seen these two performances first.
Yeah, he was the good guy in that movie, although not my favorite character by any stretch.
And speaking of Shake, Rattle, and Rock, Raymond Hatton had appeared in that one too. He was Windy Wagon Wheels here, and he had done several movies for AIP. Another memorable one was he was Farmer Larkin in Invasion of the Saucermen.
Oh, that was a good role. Those darn smoochers. The print we had of this movie was really bad. The sound was bad. The color, well, it was in black and white, so there's no color per se, but the lighting was bad. Often the screen would go almost completely dark.
I think this movie might have been pretty spectacular looking, though, had it been in color as intended.
Right, if we'd seen it in widescreen color as the newspaper ads promise, without an annoying whap, 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 whap going on in the background of almost all the scenes. So this was one that if somebody could find the original print and put it out, might be a market for that.
Yeah, I think this is one that we're lucky that exists in any form at all. So we're limited to a black and white print, which is available to stream on some free services right now.
Tubi for one.
And other than that, I imagine these are probably all taken from the only sole surviving print.
It's too bad there wasn't more of a thought of archiving things, preserving them for the future back in the early days of AIP or the early days of most studios.
Yeah, I would revisit this one in color just to see the desert backgrounds and stuff like that.
There is a colorized version on YouTube.
That's not the same.
It's not the same, and it's not very good either. There's one scene where Joyce Meadows, her body is gray, but her dress is colorful. So it's not well done. It's not consistent. The color just flickers in and out. It was nice to see Joyce Meadows in this movie. There's a lot of people that have been featured on Mystery Science Theater projects, and she's one of them. She was the girl in Lover's Lane, one who basically has the same fate here as she had there. She gets killed by the bad guy. So it was nice seeing her. I like her. And I thought Marla English was good. She got dinged in that review, but I didn't think she was bad at what she did. She should not have been cast as a Native American woman. Not at all. But that's just what they did back then.
The depictions of her and the 4 Havasupai scouts that we see are not great.
No, they look like they just pulled on random clothes from the lost and found bin. And they're riding around on horses and they're hooping and hollering. And
one of them does have buffalo horns on his head.
Right, yeah. But yeah, they didn't really put a lot of effort into them. They're obviously not characters. They're just another set of bad guys to worry about.
And they're caricatures.
None of them are Native American either. And that part is sad. It did seem like they were trying to give the character of Willow a lot of dignity, maybe an overload of dignity. She didn't have much subtlety to her character, even though she was totally horny for Luke for some reason. Maybe he was the first guy who was ever nice to her in her whole life. If so, that's pretty sad. So, using our scale where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic, what grade do you give Flesh and the Spur?
Well, I imagine I've probably seen more John Agar performances than you have.
Uh-huh.
And while this one isn't good, it is really funny to watch for some of the reasons that you mentioned. The expressions on his face and the fact that he just keeps breaking into, not laughter, but he chuckles every time somebody threatens him.
Right.
So Luke Random is a very simple guy. And I don't know if we feel for him for that, but I thought it was just kind of amazing, not fun, but just amazing to watch this person go through life. And I think it's a miracle that he met his goal, actually. I generally like Westerns. This is a pretty simple story. And I like the locations that they used. It looked like they were really out in the West.
They were.
And again, I'm just sorry that I couldn't have seen it all in color. I thought the character of Windy Wagon Wheels was a lot better than he could have been.
Oh, yeah.
He could have been easily just a stereotypical drunk comic relief guy, and they gave him a heart and story, and I thought that was kind of cool. Marla English as the Indian, she probably should not have been portraying an Indian woman, as we said. And I don't know that she did a particularly good job at it either. Her broken English isn't all that broken. It's just staggered.
Right. Well, she had been with the white men for a year, she said. So she had time to pick up on our words and our phrasing.
And it looked like they were trying to darken her skin a little at the beginning of the film. But as the film progressed, it looked like it got lighter and lighter.
Well, the notes that I found in this movie said it was very hot when they were shooting. She must have been sweating off that makeup.
Because her legs and feet are pretty white when they answer calling on her.
Again, a color print, we wouldn't have to guess if they tried to darken her skin. We wouldn't.
Well, in that case, the color might have made this even worse. But I thought this was an okay film. I've definitely seen a lot worse, Western or otherwise, so I'm going to give this one an I. What are your thoughts?
Basically on par with yours. Like I said, my major problem with this was John Agar being an absolute dope all the way through the movie. And that may have been what they intended, for all I know. And John Agar just might be really good at playing dopey guys who can't get a clue, even when it's handed to them by every other member of the cast. But apart from him, I thought it was a pretty serviceable Western. There's a lot of shooting, maybe too much, but it did give us a chance to catch up on our notes when we were watching it. And it was pretty violent, but it's not gory violence. It's just blam, blam, blam. People are getting shot and they fall down. All the horses that we did see, they didn't do any roll the horses down the hill tricks. So I hate seeing that. And I'm sure that, the crew collected the horses after the shoot. They didn't just leave them out there. They're fine. So I don't have a lot of things to complain about this movie other than beyond its control. The print we saw was terrible, but in the theater, I probably would have liked it. And here, I kind of liked it too, but it's not an excellent Western. It's not one of those John Ford movies that are going to win Oscars. This is just a good time passer. And as such, it gets an eye from me too. And this might be a good time to finally mention that we do have a website. It's aippod.com, aippod.com, where you can find our previous episodes. There's a way to contact us if you have any comments on the podcast or want to tell us something that we don't know.
We also have a lot of visual information that we obviously can't reproduce for you on an audio podcast. We have pictures of posters and lobby cards for the films that we talk about. And when available, we have trailers too.
So check out our podcast. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Now I think it's time to head to the stables. For the American International Podcast, I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And we'll see you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram and Letterboxd at AIP_pod and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.